no success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. That's why Club Wealth was founded, to help driven, successful, and busy real estate agents like you double their business while building a strong, balanced home life. Join us each week as high-producing agents and team leaders share their stories and unpack the principles and systems they've used to double, triple, and even quadruple their business while enjoying greater quality of life. And now, here's the latest episode of Club Wealth TV.
Well, hey, folks, Michael Hellickson here with Club Wealth Coaching and Consulting, where we coach from brand new agents on up to the biggest team leaders in the country, in fact, in the world, and in the real estate industry. We're super excited to be here today with my co-host for Club Wealth TV, Miss Cherie Benjamin, Hola. Rock star of the world. Dude, she's freaking crushing it. Cherie right now is hitting, what are you on track to do, about 500 deals this year? Something like that. She's killing it. She's got 30 plus people on her team, just doing it. Did over 250 transactions last year. Love Cherie. She's a Club Wealth coach, of course, and crushes it. Also, and I say Mr., I should say Mr. Coach Brian Curtis, the absolute sultan of real estate, man. This is the guy. Brian Curtis last year did over 330 transactions. He is absolutely the man. He's got a bunch of people on his team. I don't even know. I've lost count of how many people he's got on his team. But not even counting the expansion teams that Cherie and Brian are building all over the country. These guys are crushing it, their local markets and doing a great job of it. And today's guest with us is Michael Baird. And Michael is also crushing it. And I got to tell you, Michael started off as a pro golfer. And so believe it or not, like, this guy can actually swing a club, something that I think Brian's pretty good at too. I, on the other hand, suck at golf. In fact, Brian won't even golf with me because he knows how bad I am and it would ruin me.
Brian, you and I would just do like I do. We just drive around in the carts.
And stop the sandwich girl on the way by, right?
Yeah, wait for him to come by.
I'm really good at hailing the sandwich girl. That's awesome. Well, that said, Michael made the transition successfully from solo agent to team leader, and now he's a sought-after national real estate coach with, of course, Club Wealth Coaching and Consulting. And so, very excited to have you on here today, Michael. And Michael, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be teaching us today. And obviously, we're going to be dragging a lot of information out of you as well. But what's your message to the world? What's just bottled up inside you that you got to share?
Yeah, well, Michael, Cherie, Brian, thanks for having me, first of all. It's awesome to be here. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about how kind of the principles I learned playing golf, how they translate to real estate, and how a really individual sport, you can take those things and kind of extrapolate it out to a team concept and eventually kind of a leadership role. So I think we can all learn a little bit from that, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot today too.
That's awesome.
I'm just hoping you can teach me how my real estate can help my golf game. That's really what
I'm proof that doesn't work. It's not an inverse relationship there.
That's hilarious. Well, so Michael, talk to us first of all. I want to hear about the beginning, right? So, at Club Wealth, we've got a tiered system and tiered structure. And so I want to hear about, when you were in tier 1, right? When you were kind of new in the business, 0 to 25 transactions, 0 to 150,000 at GCI. How did you get started? Where were you? How did you decide all of a sudden one day, this golf thing sucks, because most people are the opposite, right? They're like, this work thing sucks. I think I'm going to go golf. Yeah, you're like, this golf thing, I'm over it. I got to go sell real estate. How did that happen?
Well, man,
how did that happen?
Well, the thing you don't see, you see the guys playing on TV, you see Tiger, you see all the guys making all the money, but the levels below that are I call it like the minor leagues of golf, right? It's like you're single A, you're in Columbus, Nebraska, playing at the Elks Country Club. No offense to anybody out there, but you're staying 4 guys to a room in a Motel 6. My last year, I played on PGA Tour Latin America, which sounds great. It's a feeder to the PGA Tour eventually. I played really bad. It's expensive to travel down there, I found out. So kind of got in the hole a bunch. My dad's been in real estate in one facet or another for 40 years. So he said, hey, you want to come work with us, get into the business? And I was super against it at first, but I was in kind of a tough spot, from where golf had put me. So dove into it full speed. I started studying and got my license in about 3-4 weeks, honestly. And then just went in full speed from there.
I tell you, Michael, right now you are making a very hard case for my husband to ever tell me that his dream is to go pro. All I'm going to say is Motel 6 in Latin America.
Yeah, exactly. If you're one of those guys that makes it on the PGA Tour, then you're living the life. But there's a reason you get paid $1 million when you win, because you didn't get paid $1 million for a lot of years before that. And it was a struggle, but it really kind of helped me appreciate what hard work is. And the good thing about real estate compared to golf is you could go beat balls all day. You could practice, you could do all the right things and not have success. Real estate, I feel like is especially with coaching, is you do the right things, you take the steps, you're going to have success. So that's was really attractive for me. I went from something where you put in hours and hours and it doesn't necessarily guarantee success. It's a very fickle sport, to real estate. Yeah, pretty fickle, but compared to golf, not at all. So it was a pretty easy transition for me.
So you said your dad was in real estate?
Yeah, he was in construction. He was an appraiser for 15 years, and he's been selling real estate since early 2000s. So he and my mom, essentially just family business, were doing really well. I came on my first couple months. I was with the brokerage, and then my dad started his brokerage, so came on with him 2-3 months into it. And so since then we've been family. It was just the three of us for probably the first 4 years, honestly. And in the last year we're at 7 agents now, and really started to grow and kind of try to, be more in a management role than out there. Last year we were 83, 84 units, and it was mainly my dad and I. So we were run pretty ragged. So that's where Club Wealth has really come in, helping to build the team concept to help agents out. We have great agents on our team that we love. They're like family. It helps them out, helps us out to where we can still have success without being run into the ground, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And it's a thing, a lot of people are afraid to make that transition from, kind of solo agent to team leader. And a lot of people love to say, well, I'm just going to keep it small and keep it all. We talk about that all the time on Club Wealth TV. But before we get into that, because I do want to hear about that transition for you, I want to know, what was it like as a solo agent? What was the business really like when you originally transitioned into it? You're working with family. It was kind of, I hear that you were in the business for several years before really developing a team.
Right. Yeah. So starting out, I think, hit the ground running just because I had to. Like I said, I had some debt built up from golf. I had to really go after it. So had in my first 3 months had 6 closings, which for, just starting out, but first 2-3 months, was pretty good just starting out. And then hit a little lull, kind of the rookie sophomore slump, whatever you want to call it. It's easy when you're new and fresh to do the things you need to do, to succeed, because it's fun, it's new. But then once you go through a deal falling apart, a buyer that drags you around looking at 150 houses, things like that, it gets a little harder. Things start sucking away from you, and it's harder to do the things that you need to do that got you to success. So first year, I think, was around after that first couple months, that was at the end of the year. The first year was in the 20s, and then just kind of kept rising from there by about 20 every year. So it's been kind of a steady climb, and we've kind of regrouped having agents now. But the things I learned in those years are things that I'm teaching to the agents now. The staying organized and staying on your key things that help drive business, and not worrying about the piddly stuff that's going to take away from your time, which we all get wrapped up in.
So let me ask you this. What were some of the things that it took for you to make that transition? Because what I heard early on, when we first started, you started talking about, taking a bunch of swings, all that kind of stuff, and the similarities between being a pro golfer and actually succeeding in real estate. And Brian, I know you'll understand some of that connection a lot better than I will, because again, I suck at golf and I know nothing about golf. So that being said, kind of draw some of those similarities and kind of how that transition happened in your mind and in practice.
Yeah. So with golf, like I said, it's very solitary. When you're out on the course playing with people, you're with people. But when you're practicing, you have to stay motivated by yourself to be out there for hours and hours. Go to bed early, get up early, things like that are hard to do. It's not a sport. I'm probably going to get hate from basketball players, but it's not a sport like basketball where you go work out and, shoot 100 shots. And it's something that you got to work out all day. Right. And with real estate starting out on your own, it's the same, it's not 500 swings a day, but it might be 500 calls a day. Right. It's picking up the phone and doing those mundane things that are a lot like the mundane things in golf, the repetition. And so that's why it was an easy transfer for me, because it went from repetitive training, working on fundamentals, to the same thing in real estate, right? You have your fundamentals, you have picking up the phone, you have going out and showing homes, things like that are tough to do, that people that don't succeed don't do it. But if you do it, and I was lucky to see success early on from doing it. So I realized that, hey, this is what needs to be done, and these are the important things. So it was a pretty easy transfer over.
Yeah, you're talking about what I spoke about a little bit at Listing Agent Bootcamp, is that it's that discipline and that diligence. Right. And whether you have it at, someone who's been in sports and you've had to do a rigorous training, whether it is the round ball, which is my sport, or not. But those things do translate over. And if you can do that in your business, then you start laying down that foundation. Once you've got that foundation, whether it was in sports, whether it was when you were in school, whatever that is, you apply it to your real estate career. And I really like that you're teaching that to your newer agents who are young, new in the business, because that's something that everybody watches this HGTV, or they watch something else and they think that real estate is so glamorous and so glorious and everyone was it's an overnight success. And it's not. It's a lot of things that are being done that no one sees. So that getting up early is still there. No one sees it. You're doing it. Making those calls. If I set 500 calls for myself to make a day, a week, let's say that. So let's say a week, if I set 500 calls for me to make per week, then I don't stop till I hit it. And then my next goal after that, once I've said, okay, I know I can hit 500 calls. All right. How many appointments am I looking at making, or how many conversations am I looking at having? Once I've made those conversations and I've hit that milestone, now how many appointments am I looking at making per day?
Right.
It's a continuous thing. It's just like in sports. When you first start, if I got out and I decided to run a mile today, I'm not going to make it at all. But if I continually do it every single day, now 1 mile feels like nothing. So I'm going to push myself to 2. Then I'm going to push myself to 3. And whether I'll ever make a marathon, I don't know, because I don't like running that much, but you get my drift.
Yeah. And it's a lot the same with golf. You can go hit 10-foot putts all day, right? And say you're practicing, but until you define your goals and say, hey, I need to make 10 in a row before I leave, it's kind of like you can make 500 calls, but if you don't set one appointment, I'm sure we've all been there. We might not admit to it. I will right here. I've made calls before where I know that the person's not going to answer just to get my call number up, like if I set my goals. So that's when I started setting goals of not just calls, but contacts. And that's kind of like, you can go beat balls on the range all day, but if you're not aiming at a target, it's not going to get you anywhere. And that's the same in real estate.
Talk to me about that transition. So we talked a little bit about you being a solo agent. So when it came time, when did you know it was time for you to make that shift over to having a team?
Probably towards the middle end of 2016 was when first started thinking about it. I think we were in the mid 50s, closed in 2016, and just getting really busy, kind of run down. The way we had it set up, my dad's a little south of town, so everything north of town I was working, which was where most of our business was. So I was getting kind of run ragged. We had all these leads that we couldn't work because there was just the two of us really. So we kind of started talking about it then out of necessity. And then 2017, we brought on another agent, a good friend of mine that I sold a house to. And he was part of the team, the last half of last year. And then, we hired on an agent in November, and then since then, we're at 7 now. So we've continually added on, and we're at a position where it's kind of that it's about being uncomfortable and adapting, right? And we were super uncomfortable and needed to adapt when it was just my dad and I running ragged. And now we're a little uncomfortable, running the team. It's kind of a new thing, right? Learning how to do it best. But I know that discomfort will, lead to good changes. So it's exciting.
Okay, so here's what I want to, Brian. You're a golfer. You got to help us out here, man. So you actually go out, you swing that club, and you also run a baller team. What are the lessons that you think we can learn here from comparing golf to the real estate industry?
So I think in golf, obviously I love golf. People make fun of me. My wife makes fun of me. If I could make money playing golf, I wouldn't be on this phone call. I really enjoy it that much. But I also know, there you go. See? There's a reason I'm on this phone call. So, I don't hit 350 off the tee, and I don't spin it back 20 feet every time I hit a wedge. So anyway, here's my questions for you. As you go to do this, and a little bit of my background. So I was a competitive rifle shooter. So I competed in the 96 Olympic trials. Very similar sport in that it's me and me and me, and I get it. And so, when I looked at those things, I would say the biggest things that I got from that was, discipline. So, and then knowing that I can do the things that I don't want to do because that we can move ahead. So one of my favorite quotes is success is boring. And that doesn't mean, when we sell 300 houses that's boring. It means the activities that we did for 8 hours a day are often boring. And they're not all boring, but you talked about making 500 phone calls. Even if you're really brilliant at making 500 phone calls, it gets boring. And here's the thing, the better you get at it, the more boring it gets. And that's one of the things that people don't understand about success. It's like, I've gotten really good at this, and you see people all the time. I'm really good at doing this activity, so what I'm going to do now is learn to do another one. Well, there is some value in that, but why not just do the thing that you're really, 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 really good at? I mean, there's a reason the book is called The One Thing for all you KW agents out there. It's get good at something, get really, really, really good at it, and do it over and over and over and over again. Now, for me, yes, I was really good at working with buyers. Then I became really good at listing houses. Now I feel like I'm pretty good at running our team, but it's that constant and never, CANI, constant and never ending improvement. And so, and I'm sure the same thing was in golf. So, to me, here's my question to you. What's the thing that now you're here, you got a team of 7 agents, you're doing, 100 plus transactions a year. What is the improvement that you're looking for? Because I think that's one of the things that becomes very important. And for everybody listening, being a team leader is never about I sit back and collect paychecks. I think there's a delusion out there that I'm going to start a team, I'm going to give them some leads, I'll give them a CRM and let the money roll in. That has not been my experience, and I've talked to hundreds of team leaders, and not a single one of them has told me, I just wait for the checks to come in. So with that in mind, what's the thing that you're doing to push your team forward? What's the thing that you're trying to get better at?
Right. Well, for me, it was the same things I struggled with. Accountability, right? Being motivated, but sticking to it and sticking to the right things, right? Like you said, the one thing. And our one thing this past month has been hitting the phones consistently, right? Because it's something that it's easy to say and easy to think you're doing. We got dialers that track our calls. Starting about a month ago. And I think everybody was kind of shocked. Hey, I make calls for 2 hours, right? And you look at how many calls you actually made. And I'm as guilty as this anybody. So I'm not hating on my agents at all. But, I know from my experience, you'd sit there and you make a call and, oh, look, a Facebook notification. And, you get a text and like, oh, God, you get an email that, something wrong with the inspection. And all of a sudden you've been sitting there for 2 hours and feel like you've been working, you've been hitting the phones and like, oh, my God, I made 7 calls, So
if you don't mind, let me ask you this. Yeah. So you use a dialer. Do you use a 1-line or a 3-line?
1 line. We're Follow Up Boss, and we use the dialer on there.
So you're using a click-to-call dialer,
right? Yeah. So it's not the fastest, but it's our goal for our agents this month, just starting out with it, and we may change our goals, but was for each agent to make 1,000 dials. And
a month or a week?
For the month. And I know that
I like that. Sure, he's like a month or a day.
I know. And I know that's not huge, but we went from not tracking it at all, and not knowing. Well, we had an idea, but not really knowing how many dials we made to this. And another part of the thing was creating a family atmosphere, family business, right? I don't want to go from hey, make calls, call your leads to okay, you got to do 5,000 dials this month, right? We want to keep it fun and build, right? And I will say that from doing that this month, pretty much everybody on the team is going to hit that goal, and it's caused a huge uptick. Obviously not closings yet because it's only been a month, but a huge uptick in productivity. Things going on, talking to leads, things that weren't happening as much before. So I think everybody is buying in and understanding how important it is. And that's the goal for me as a team leader, is to just, help show that accountability, how important it is, but I can't force anybody to do it. Right. I don't want to cram it down anybody's throat, but I think everybody is seeing on their own how important it is. And that's awesome to see.
So let me talk to you about go ahead. No? Yeah. Okay. So the DAOs. I'm one of those phone people. So I believe that the phone is the quickest way to the paycheck. So if I'd rather get on the phone and crank out some calls than go knock on 100 doors. That's right. Me. So we had a team meeting right after a listing agent boot camp, something a little bit similar to what you're talking about there. And I want to talk to you just about, since you're doing it now for a month, let's talk about month 2. Okay. Yeah. So once everyone's hitting that and they see that it's very obtainable, what we then did is I said, okay, so let's be very honest with everybody. Okay, let's everybody be very honest. How long does it take for you to make 25 dials a day? And they said, if no one answers, about 15 minutes. Okay, so if you're on the phone for 15 minutes, are you truly having a full real estate day? Are you truly going after and trying to get to set appointments if it's really only taking you 15 minutes? No, we're not. Okay, well then let's talk about this. So what if you did 1 hour? How many people do you think, or how many dials do you think you can make in 1 hour? Because me, as your team leader, I'm giving you the dialer. I'm sitting there and I'm investing in you every month with this dialer. So let's talk about using it now. Okay, so if we did 1 hour, that 1 hour, how many do you think we'll talk to? Or at least how many dials do you think you'll make? Because remember, we talked about there's a progression that's there. And they all said 100. Great. So what should be our goal for the week? Let's give you Saturday and Sunday off for making the calls. If we just said Monday through Friday, 1 hour, what should be our goal? You know what everyone said? 500. 500, yeah. 500 is what everyone said. And then I had other people who said, you know what, I'm not going to do 500 because I don't have anybody under contract, or if you're in a different state, in escrow. So I'm going to do 1,000. And I've had people who have consistently done 1,000 a week, every single week, and others that have seen that. So what happens is that I love it because we all feed off of each other's energy. So then my thing to you is, once everyone sees it and we know that it's obtainable, just the way that we were talking about me running that first mile and how hard it's going to be. And then I get it done. And that was easy. So let me push myself to mile 2. So I want for you to keep constantly pushing them. Don't just settle for, oh, we did 1,000 for the month. That's great. No, keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Let's do that full hour at least of it. And let's elevate up each time for you and for your team.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you said the hour, 2 hours. I think that's something we can get better at, is really setting aside that time to dial, right? Because we all work from home. We don't have an office. We're all over the Denver metro. You know, our farthest agents are an hour apart, right? So we meet in person once a week. We have the daily huddles on Zoom, but it's hard. We don't go into an office and sit there and dial together. So it's hard to keep everybody motivated to have their chunks of time. And I think that's something that we definitely could get better at, because like you said, Sheree, you know, you make that many dials in an hour. If you were sitting there in a room of 10 other people making dials, I think it's going to double your rate, as opposed to sitting at home and, you know, having your wife or your husband or your dogs, in my case, you know, whatever's going on.
Don't mention these.
So yeah, I think that's something where I know as a team we can improve. But like I said, it for us, it was that baby step of getting the dialer. Pretty much everybody's going to hit the 1,000 dials this month, and kind of building that momentum into more concrete things like you're talking about. So I love that.
Okay, so we got a couple of great questions here. Vera Lynn asks, making 500 calls strictly from the database? Is that right?
From the database that we provide as a team leader.
Okay, that's what she's asking. So it's the database you're providing as team leader. They're not calling cold calls or anything like that. It's all lead gen calls, or are they also calling FSBOs, expireds, you know, and those types of things?
Brian.
You want me to answer that question?
Any of you?
Yeah, because you do the FSBOs and expireds and all those types of things.
Yeah, let's start with Michael. Michael, what about your database? Are your guys, are they calling just in your database? Are they just calling warm leads, or are they also calling cold leads?
Just our database. We have 25,000 in our database, so that's enough for us to call for years. So, and you know, we're adding on to that all the time. So that for us, that we don't need to go beyond that right now, at least.
Okay. So, and by the way, I think that's an important point that you just mentioned, that you could call on that list for years. And a lot of people would say, oh no, it's only the hot leads. It's only the new leads that are good. But my hunch is that that's not the case for you guys. Is that right?
Yeah, no, the old leads are great because Damon Gutierrez, my coach, right? And he told me the stat, I think that 25 or more, I don't know, he'll probably yell at me for this, percent of online leads buy a house, right? Yeah. And I think like within the first, I don't know, month, 2, 3, it's like 3% of them buy, right? So it's those ones that everybody hammers. You know, you look at other Facebook groups, I won't name names, but it's like, you know, first 3 days call them 28 times, and you know that's important, but to get them, because they're the hottest when they first, you know, when you first get them. But there's those people that had something happen that put it off, and everybody else gave up on them. And if we're following up with them to see how we can help, we're going to find people that need help that we would love to help. And so I think it's a gold mine.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. Go ahead, Brian. What were you going to say?
So here's the thing that most people miss. In other words, if most people think to call 500 people a week, I need to have 500 people in my database at a minimum. And that's not true. And you're only talking, I did math, you're only talking about approximately 250 a week. I figure out there's 22 working days in the month if you work Monday through Friday and the average month. So we'll call it 20, just, you know, take a day off here and there, or just the math's easier. So 250 people a week or 50 people a day. If you have 200 people in your database, you know, and if you call 50 of them, realistically, you know, I think I was talking to one of our other coaches, your coach, I was talking to Damon yesterday, and his comments to me was, it takes 100 dials to have 10 conversations. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that statistic. It might be a little bit less. It might be a little bit more market to market, database to database. But let's just assume that that's accurate. That means that if I dial 50 times, I'm only talking to 5 people. And guess what? Now I've got 45 more people to call tomorrow. And then, 45, maybe I got 40 people the next day. So it's not as simplistic as to call 500 people. I need 500 people, because it just doesn't work that way. And, you do have to have a system, and you have to have a plan in mind. And eventually, yes, you will. So I gave an ISA company that I work with about 3,800 leads. They were calling about 600 people a day. So theoretically, they're done in a week? It took them 2 months to get through those. So, 600 dials a day, and which is insane, by the way. But nonetheless, it's a different thing. And we found lots of good leads in there. We found people who we hadn't heard from. I got a builder who was in there who just, I don't know if we'd ever would have contacted him. But ultimately, your database is rich with stuff that we haven't looked at, we haven't talked to, we haven't contacted. And, I'd like everybody to think about this whole concept of I need the new lead is so silly, because think about if you've ever purchased a house, you and your significant other, or did it by yourself. When my wife and I bought a house, we didn't look at each other and go, okay, honey, let's call a real estate agent today, because we want to look at a house. We got on Zillow, we got on Trulia, we got Realtor.com, we went on all these other websites, and it was 6, 7, 10, 12 months before we wanted to go actually open a door. And heck, we're real estate agents. We can do it ourselves. So imagine that person who becomes a Zillow lead for the first time, or becomes a Realtor.com lead, or goes to your website. You got them on Facebook. By the way, in case anyone is wondering, no one ever logged on to Facebook because they wanted to buy a house. So, a Facebook lead maybe way up here in the funnel, and understand that when you're thinking about this. Does that mean they're a bad lead? No, it just means they're not a tomorrow lead. So when you call that person 6 months from now, there's a much better chance that they're ready to buy a house than they were 6 months ago, especially, for those leads that are non-Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com leads. So.
Yeah. And to touch on that, I tell the agents, you want to be the one that calls them when they're ready, and you never know when they're ready. So you got to keep calling. And
absolutely.
People, like you said, Brian, people will sign up and think, I want to buy a house, and it might matriculate over 2 years. And if our agent is one that calls them in, 1 year, 364 days, when they're starting to think about it, then that's great. That works out great for everybody.
And they're the only agent calling.
Right. That's exactly right. But because everybody else gives up after the first or second call at best. And so, I look at it like this. It's like going to Nordstrom's, right? And, Cherie or Brian, you go into Nordstrom's and you're looking for that perfect pair of Louboutins, right? Yeah, maybe not Brian, but you go in there and you're looking at that perfect pair of Louboutins. And you walk in, and what's the first thing that happens? The salesperson comes up and they say, "Hey, can I help you?" And what do you tell them? No, just looking. It's okay. Don't need anything right now. And then they walk off to the other side of the store, and you're sitting there. You're going through the shoes, and you find that perfect pair with the red bottoms and the 4-inch heel and the the leopard print, whatever it is Brittany had on the other day. And you're like, I gotta have that. I gotta have that shoe. And what do? Do you run all the way across the store and go get that guy?
I get the one that's sitting right next to me.
Absolutely. And you just grab that person because they're convenient. And that's what we need to be. We need to be convenient for them when they need us, and not think that they're going to just come find us when we want them to find us or when they're ready, because it just won't happen. Andrea Kling, by the way, made a great point. She said, set 5 appointments yesterday from leads that have been in my database for over 6 months.
Nice.
Way to go, Andrea. And by the way, for those of you watching, I notice we have a ton of people watching right now. For those of you watching, so go ahead and remember, you can ask your questions, type them into the feed here, and we'll get to your questions as quickly as we can. And also, if you know somebody that should be watching this, that should be learning from this right now, tag them in it. Tag your agents in it if you're a team leader. Tag your coaching clients in it if you're a coach. Tag people in it so they see this post. All right, good stuff. So let's move forward. So Brian Street, any questions for Michael?
Yeah, I want to talk about your transition. You came in as tier 1, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you currently?
Tier 3.
Tier 3. Okay. So those who are watching that don't understand our tiered based system, we in Club Wealth, there's tiered based, and of course your coach Damon is a lot higher than and he's coaching you down. So that transition from tier 1, getting yourself going, getting your systems in place, solo agent, you moved to tier 2. Tier 2 is when you started to grow your team. Is that correct?
Yeah. Essentially, that was last year when we kind of started baby steps on that. So
you started growing your team at tier 2. When did you transition over to tier 3? Because I really love that you came in. I came in as tier 2 and then have moved up, but you came in as tier 1 solo agent and then have progressed up in the years, over the course of the years.
Yeah, so switched over to tier 3 earlier this year after talking to Michael, and I think the biggest change for me is just the kind of the masterminding with other agents that production is way more than me, and I'm happy with what we've built, but I know that there's a lot more out there. We can help a lot more people. That's what we talk about is we want to help as many people as possible, right? It's good for us. It's good for them. That's the name of the game, right? It's a relationship business. So that's what we shoot for. And that's what I love is we're constantly learning at Club Wealth how to build those relationships, how to grow that business, and how to help more people. So it's really cool.
That mastermind is such a key because I remember that tier 2, my first couple of months of being on there, I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I had a notebook. All I did was constantly write things down. And then my coach, Brian, I would go back to him and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then he'd say, okay, yeah, let's look at that. But we're going to put that in once you get to this point. But that mastermind, each time you level up to another tier, that mastermind, it's like mind blowing when you hear of everything else. And it's like the secret society. I'm going, well, I didn't know you guys were even doing all of this stuff. Right. So that masterminding is so key. That's there. And it's a huge, huge, huge part of your growth. So have you started taking things from your mastermind because you've been in it since the beginning of the year? What are some of the things you're taking that you're looking at starting to implement?
For me, a lot of it is there's so many good ideas. It was kind of like listing agent boot camp, come back with a book of ideas. And for me, the hardest thing, it's not implementing things, it's not implementing things, right? Because, there's Club Wealth, it's a wealth of knowledge, there's a lot of great ideas and people doing it different ways. And I think, at least at my level, I'm very tied into the day-to-day of everything. So until I get more out of that and I'm able to implement things and have time to, for me, it's not implementing everything. It's implementing one or two things at a time. And Damon and I have been working on that on our calls lately. It's like, we'll take one or two things to work on, and I'm focusing on getting those done and then moving on to the next thing, right? But continuing to do those well. I think you talked about that, Brian. It's not like, jack of all trades. You got to do something well and keep doing it. You can't do it well for a little bit and then quit and move on to the next thing. So that's why it's hard. The masterminds are great and you learn a lot, but you have to, with great power comes great responsibility, right? If there's a lot, if there's a lot of things you could implement, you could crash and burn pretty quick if you try to implement them all at once.
So go ahead, Brian.
So I think I want to piggyback on that, Michael, because I feel like one of the things that happens, and it happens at conferences and it happens when you're new to something, is you want to take these 27 amazing ideas that I learned about yesterday, and then you're like, I got to implement them all. You come home and you're like, okay, oh crap, I got to work on this. And before you know it, those 27 amazing ideas that you absolutely had to do into your business, they're gone. They're off doing something else because you got to deal with this file and that file and this agent and this administrator, all the things that come with running a business. And so, a couple of things that I've found been really successful is, Michael talks about perfect daily schedule. So putting some time in your schedule to work on your business instead of in your business, the E-Myth concept. And the other thing is I love pick one thing at a time. And again, I add stuff to who I am, what our business is all the time. And that's important, but it's one at a time. I'm not going to implement, a mailer program when I can't even get someone to call people. This is not the problem. I don't need more incoming if I can't even get people to handle the incoming we currently have. I don't need to, go hire 30 agents when I don't have any kind of system to train them and get them in place. So, it's first things first, and it's also just one thing at a time. when I go back and I look at our business, I got into the REO world back in 2006. And it was the one thing that I did. And I got really good at working with people who wanted to buy REOs. I'm not even talking about listing. We did that too. But that was the thing that saved my business, because everything was an REO out there and I became the REO expert. It wasn't necessarily my plan at the time, but just find something that you're good at, get really good at it, implement. And I love that it feels like that's what you're doing instead of trying to, eat through a shotgun, which I feel like a lot of people try to do.
Yeah, and I'm not great at it. I love shiny things and trying the new thing, so it's hard for me. But I've seen that when I try to do too many things at once and try to implement too many things at once, it hurts me, it hurts the team, it hurts my psyche because there's just too much going on. So yeah, that's awesome advice, Brian. The one thing, there's a reason they wrote a book about it.
So I want to switch gears for just a second. First of all, Damon Gutierrez, Coach Damon Gutierrez is watching, and shout out to Coach Damon. And we got a whole bunch of other people. Kathy Hoffman's on. We got Todd Strauss, Haley Velscott. It's crazy how many people are watching today. But I asked Coach Damon, I said, what's the one thing that impresses you most about Michael? And he said, humble implementation. And I got to tell you guys, I hear this over and over and over again. As I look at the best, most successful real estate agents, whether it's a solo agent or a team or a broker or anybody practically in any business, but particularly in the real estate industry, it's the humble implementers that are doing the best, because they're not out there talking about, oh, I'm going to do this and look at all these great things I'm going to do and oh, blah, blah. They don't give a rip about that. What they do is they just quietly go implement the things they're taught from people that they know better than they do and know where to go. And they just do it and it works. And to your point, Brian, a lot of that perfect daily schedule is a big piece of that, right? They schedule time in to do the implementation of those things. So, it's not, you guys, success really is boring. And I'm saying this to everybody watching right now. It's not always the most exciting thing in the world to the things that it takes to become successful. Being successful can be exciting, but getting there rarely ever is. And it really does take doing the grind every day. And it doesn't mean you have to pound the phones every day. You'll hire people for that at times. But it does mean that you've got to, what we call eat the frog. You've got to do those things that you really don't want to do until you can afford to pay somebody else to do them for you. So it's a big deal. Now, I want to ask you something, Michael. This one's really important to me. So we hear from time to time people that are in tier 2 and they're talking about, should I move up into tier 3? And oh my gosh, it's a big jump. My business might be moving into tier 3 and I might be qualified for tier 3, but it's a big jump financially for me to pay for coaching at the tier 2 level versus, a tier 3 level. What would your advice be to them?
Well, the way I look at it is if I didn't think I got the value out of what I'm paying, I wouldn't do it. But it's there times a lot, just the things, even the ideas that we get, from one tier to another, where I'm at now, I was really happy before, right? And I was like, I want to pay more and whatever, but it's going to help the business. It's going to help things. And you do it. And it's one of those things you have to do to know, right? Because I thought, well, God, all the on the tier 2 mastermind calls, just so much knowledge. I would, like you, Sheree, I could pen and paper and write things down and have all these ideas. And then you go to the next level of the tier 3 and it's next level. That's the best way to describe it. It's hard to put a finger on like one thing, but I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah. It's funny how, you never realize what's there until you're there. And then when you're there, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is mind blowing. I don't know how am I going to implement all this? How am I going to do this? And yet you find a way. And as you just take that one thing at a time and you get it implemented, all of a sudden big things happen. So Good stuff. All right, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was agreeing.
Oh, gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. All right. So we're running out of time. We've only got about 10 minutes left here before you got to wrap up. And I see that we've got people that are chiming in here, and I appreciate your questions, you guys. And Michelle's like, what Brian just said is super powerful. I need to re-listen to that 100 times. I love it. That's awesome. All right. So here's what I want to know. What's your advice to everybody that's watching right now that is questioning whether or not they should build a team? And I ask this question a lot because I feel so strongly about teams. But Michael, what would your advice to them be?
For me, it's really been rewarding because, at least the team members we have now, it's like a family. And it takes real estate from, if you're doing it on your own, the way I've looked at it, at least recently, is that if you're doing it on your own and you're successful, you could do it that way until you die. Nothing, you might be, I'm 33, I might be doing it till I'm 85, because you could be as successful as you want, but you're the one that drives everything, right? And so for me, building the team is bringing other people in. We've done it differently than a lot of people. Try to make the team people that kind of start with personality that fits first, and build off that. And it's all people. It's worked really well for us because everybody's awesome. Everybody does a great job, and it really drives that family feeling home to where I enjoy being around them. I enjoy talking to them. I enjoy helping them succeed. And I know they enjoy when overall we succeed. And so it's really, hey, I could do it on my own and excuse me, keep 100% everything and, keep trying to do more, but there's a ceiling, right? If you're doing it on your own, there's a ceiling and you start driving yourself into the ground, working so hard, running around, doing everything, that your clients suffer because you're doing too much. And it's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you as an agent because you could do it till you're 85. And, it's always you can't go on vacation. You can't do anything. And with the team, you can still help people. You can still help people succeed. You can still succeed, but it gives you room to breathe.
Yeah, that's huge. I love what you said about family, and I love that your first thoughts and your comments didn't go to money. Although we all know that definitely as you build a team, and whether you're on a team or building a team, right? It doesn't matter if you're the team leader or a member of the team. Team members as a whole make more money than solo agents. I mean, they just do, and they have a better life in the process. But what I really heard you talking about was family and how your team is like a family. And so that to me is really important. I think that culture is the piece that a lot of people miss. They forget that, people might be attracted to your team for a lot of reasons. Maybe it's leads, maybe it's support, it's leadership, maybe it's whatever. But that culture is what will keep them there. That culture is what's going to decide whether they stay or go. It's almost never the money. In fact, I talked to somebody yesterday, and I won't tell you who because it's Frank Klesitz. But I was talking to this guy, and he says, I hire everybody at minimum wage. Everybody. Said I used to hire people at $70,000 a year, professional marketers at $70,000 a year. Now I hire everybody at minimum wage. And I said, oh, what? Are you kidding me? Why? Like, why? He says, because I figured out that it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I hired people at $70,000 a year. If I hired them at minimum wage, I was getting great people at both levels. So why pay $70,000 when I get them at minimum wage? So he starts hiring them minimum wage, and he trains them up. And he said the skill level was the same, and I had to train him either way. Only he was bitter about having to train somebody at $70,000 a year when he wasn't bitter about it if they were starting at minimum wage. And now he trains them up to be these great members of his team. But here's the thing I noticed when I was in his office yesterday. Tara and I spent quite a bit of time in his office yesterday. And what I noticed was the culture on that team was fantastic. The culture was wicked strong, and people don't leave that team. He's got people that have been there for years making minimum wage. I kid you not. Now he's got people that make more than that, of course, but they all started at minimum wage. So money isn't the issue. And it's funny. It seldom is. People always think that it is. It's like when they go on listing appointments. Oh my gosh, who's going to list with me at 7%? Who's going to list with me with 12-month agreement or anything like that? Nobody. That's not the issue. Oh, but I'm competing against a 1% fee company or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What's important is the value that you bring. That's what people are buying. Price is only an issue in the absence of value. And that goes for your team as well. And so, all right. So in the last couple of minutes here, we've got literally 5 minutes left. I want to find out something from each one of you. Number one, what do you think about the market shifting? Is it happening? And if it's happening, how do we respond to it? Anybody?
I'll go ahead. I think a lot of our business is buyer driven. So we're hurt by this market. As good as it is, it's just the way we kind of set up our business from the beginning, and we're shifting into more listings, things like that. But I think it is just with interest rates going up. I think people are going to slowly be able to afford less, and we're in Denver here. We'll see 15, 20 offers on a property. I see that slowing down. I hope it does. For the sake of people trying to buy a house, because if you graduate college with a master's degree in Denver, you can't live here, so I hope it's shifting. I think it has to. And like you've talked about, Michael, when it does, it's going to go, you got to provide more value, right? Because you can't just stick a sign in the yard and have a house sell in a day. You got to let people know what you're going to do to work for them and hustle for them. And that becomes even more important. So for good agents, when the market shifts, I think it's a plus. It's easier for buyers to get houses. It's easier to, sell with what you're worth, what you're going to do for the customer. So I love it.
I coach people in a ton of different markets, so that are very different from my market. So we've got people who are in Silicon Valley area who house goes on the market, it's gone, and it's $2 million, and it's a $65,000 Atlanta house, but it's $2 million there. Then we've got others that are in such a low inventory place that it's so hard. They're heavily for buyers. So I think that the market shift, is it happening? Can we see it? Yeah, rates are going to go up. Some things will start to slow down. But when I got into the business, the rate was 7.7. It dropped below 8%. And I remember when it dropped below 8%, we started hitting the phones hard because it was 7.75 and everybody needs to buy that it's 7.75 or refinance or do something at 7.75. And it was still a great market. And we still sold a lot of homes, and it doesn't slow down. I want for a lot of people, they have these little monkeys on their shoulders and they think this, and they let these little negative thoughts that you hear around start jumping into your brain. And I want you to just take it and throw it away. Because today's market is fantastic to me, because we used to have to buy houses at 8%. So it's a huge difference. Some markets, yes, you're going to be in more of a seller driven. Some of them are more buyers, heavy, but it doesn't matter. Adapt to what you have right now. What I love about Club Wealth is that we're going to give you the tools no matter which market you're in. It's just up to you in order to apply them. Yeah.
I actually really love it when the market sucks. I think it's the best market ever because, it's funny. When I got into the business, and I don't know what the interest rates were. Somebody told me it was like 14% or something like that. And because, I'm as old as dirt, apparently.
This is a dinosaur.
But the reality is, I didn't know for the first couple of years. I didn't care what the interest rates were. That's the stuff the lenders deal with. Like, I don't care. My job is to go out and put deals together, and I'm going to go put them together. I'm going to figure it out. And I did. And oh my gosh, I actually made a great living. And then in 2000, fast forward a couple of decades. Wow, now I'm really sounding old. Fast forward a couple of decades to 2007 when the market crashed. Oh my gosh, guess what? All of a sudden, all the weak agents got out of the business, and I went out and I bought up all their lead sources. And so now I had all the best lead sources, and I got them for less because the people that were selling these leads knew they couldn't sell them for as much as they once could. So I was getting discounts on the best lead sources out there. I bought every freaking one of them, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm off to the races. Now everybody wanted to be on my team because I had all the best leads. And so, I look at this market shift coming up as the best thing that's ever happened to teams. I think it's great. We're out of time, you guys. We got time for a 15-minute parting thought from each one of you, or 15 seconds, sorry, parting thought from each one of you. So very, very quickly, we'll start with Cherie Benjamin, ladies first, and then Brian, and then Michael, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well, Michael, I love what you're doing. I have something very similar to that, where we're very wide also. We don't always see each other all the time, but we've built this great culture, and that's what we lead first. So we're only bringing on people who we know that are going to be a good fit for us. So I really do love that. I love that you've gone up in the tiers, and you have leveled up each time. So each time that you've had that conversation with Hellickson, you've leveled up each time, so you're constantly pushing yourself, which is what a leader does, because then your agents are going to continue to do the same thing. So It's been fantastic having you on.
Love it. Brian.
So I didn't get to talk about shifts, so I'll talk about it real quick. Stop it. So control the controllables. Don't worry about the things you have no idea that you can possibly predict. If anybody can predict when the market's going to shift and how much it's going to shift, please call me. I'll write you a big check and we'll both become exceedingly wealthy. And you said something, Michael, and Michael Baird, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit. When the market shifts, we have to be better. Don't be better now. And there's no reason to be better because the market's harder. Be your best today. And I'm not saying that we all don't have room for improvement, but don't be crappy because the market's easy. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I feel like a lot of agents out there aren't looking for ways to get constantly better. Get constantly better. When the market shifts, you'll be the best, and who cares? So
yeah,
that's my rant.
I love it. Michael, your parting thought.
Yeah, totally agree, Brian. Thanks for having me on. It's been awesome. I think the main thing I hope everybody gets from this is, what I took from golf, it was discipline. And in real estate, that's huge, sticking to your important things. And as far as building a team, the way we've done it is just with great people that, we started with a lot of agents that were brand new, who had really big success right away, because they liked the atmosphere and felt comfortable. And so I think that's huge. You don't have to run your team like a dictatorship or a evil corporation, so to speak. It can be a family atmosphere and still be really successful. So that's what I love about what we're doing, and I hope we keep it that way.
I love it. And that's the difference between being a team manager and a team leader, right? It's like, this isn't about team management. It's about team leadership, and right. Leaders lead, and people follow leaders because the leaders have the team's best interest at heart. You guys, I love this. You guys, seriously, great call today. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. We do need to go. We got to get on the coach's call. And so thank you, everybody. And for those of you that are watching, we really appreciate it. And do me a favor, seriously, please share this with someone that you know. And please shout out, to our sponsor, WiseHire. If you guys haven't tested out WiseHire yet, give them a try. We love them. We're consistently hiring people out of WiseHire ads. And if you don't know how to get a hold of WiseHire, just go to clubwealth.com/WIZEHIRE, WiseHire. And we'll see you on the next Club Wealth TV. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. Don't forget, for those of you that are watching this, if you would love to do a call with one of us or one of our other coaches at Club Wealth that produces at a higher level than you do, go to clubwealth.com/strategy session. That's www.clubwealth.com/strategy. Oops, I got to spell strategy right. SESSI, strategy session. Go to clubwealth.com/strategy session. Sign up. We'll do a free call with you. It's a 55-minute call. We'll look at where you're at in your business now, where you're trying to go, and we'll build your roadmap on how to get there, whether you end up coaching with us or not. So that being said, have a great day, everybody. We appreciate you watching today. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.